Well, hey there, what is up, Abernathy Antelope football fans? Ty Horsford again with you here. Another episode of the Abernathy Antelope pregame show. Looking a little bit different this week, obviously. No football game coming up Friday night for the Abernathy Antelopes. The bye week heading into district play. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about on this week's edition of the Abernathy Antelope pregame show with no specific game to preview for this week. We're going to kind of do a district at a glance, if you will, a district preview for the Abernathy Antelopes heading into district play next week, as they will open district play next Friday night at home at Antelope Stadium against the Stanton Buffaloes. The season that matters, if you will, getting underway next Friday night. So in the off week, the Antelopes making some preparations and some tune-ups heading into district play next Friday night. But that gives us an off week. That gives us a chance to chat a little bit about the teams in the district, kind of what the Antelopes are going to be up against. And at the end of today's pregame show, going to give you at least how I think District 2 3A of Division 2 will shake out with some predictions for what that is worth. But let's just jump right in. We'll go in no particular order to start. Obviously, we all know and care about the Abernathy Antelopes. I'm not going to talk a lot about them as far as the district preview is concerned. We talk about the Antelopes every week, and they're obviously going to be one of the favorites in District 2 3A Division 2, ranked 7th in the state in the latest Dave Campbell's Texas football poll, rolling through the preseason. 4-1, the record after the non-district portion of the schedule for the Abernathy Antelopes. So we'll just kind of go in alphabetical order, if you will. The Coahoma Bulldogs, kind of an unfamiliar foe. We obviously played them last year in district play, but before that, not really a familiar opponent, as opposed to some of these teams that we're going to see in district play. And a little bit surprising, maybe, to some people, the Coahoma Bulldogs off to a 4-1 start in District 2 3A play. So that's a little bit intriguing. Their lone loss on the season coming to a pretty good Slayton ball club, 28-26 in a 2-point setback. But pretty impressive numbers for Coahoma. They're outscoring their opponents 41-12 on the season. Quarterback in Zach Snyder, kind of like the Antelopes. They've got a quarterback that can do it all. He leads the team in rushing and passing. They're a run-first offense. Like most of the teams in this district, the Coahoma Bulldogs will look to run first, averaging 266 yards per game on the ground. So that's the Coahoma Bulldogs at a glance. Maybe a little bit of an upstart Coahoma Bulldog team, a team looking to make some noise in District 2 3A play. And then you've got the Colorado City Wolves. Obviously, the Antelopes and the Wolves, they met last year in Abernathy. That was a highly anticipated matchup as going into the season last year, into the district season. Most people's favorite to come out of the district on top was Colorado City. But Abernathy, a dominating performance and a dominating win when Colorado City made the trip to Abernathy this year. The Antelopes here in a few weeks will return that favor and make the trip to Sea City. But it's been a disappointing start to the season for Colorado City. They lost a ton off of last year's veteran ball club, so kind of in rebuild mode, if you will. The Colorado City Wolves, they are winless so far on the season, 0-4. Heading into the district portion of their schedule. And the problem for Colorado City, they haven't been able to score. They're getting outscored on average 31-8 on the season, are the Colorado City Wolves. Now, to their credit, they've played a very difficult non-district portion of their schedule. They've played some bigger schools and some pretty stiff competition, but they've also had lopsided losses in those contests as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for Colorado City to string together very many wins in district play. But again, the record's reset. We'll see. Colorado has some talent. They're young, though, and not very veteran. We'll see what they look like come District 2 3A play next Friday. Old familiar foe, the Idalou Wildcats. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with, I think, in this District 2 3A play. They're always tough in Idalou. Maybe this year a little bit tougher than some people might have thought, if you will, or maybe more than I thought coming into the season. They've looked pretty good. They've got a good-looking 3-2 record. We'll put it that way. They do have a couple of setbacks on the season, but it's been a good-looking 3-2 record. Their only losses of the season, no shame in this, to Seminole and Denver City, bigger and even bigger schools that the Wildcats have fallen to. They've also got impressive wins over Shallowater, Littlefield. The only common foe between Abernathy and Idalou is Littlefield. They both 38-21 winners over the Littlefield Wildcats, so that's a little interesting. Not that you can always play that game, but also a win over the Muleshoe Mules through the non-district portion of the schedule. So Idalou comes in. They are 3-2 on the season. And really, they're going to start district play with a bang, as they're going to open up against the Coahoma Bulldogs. I think in week 1 of the district, that's going to be the game to keep an eye on, Coahoma and Idalou, because that could be a game that factors big into the district race and the district standings come the end of the year. But Idalou, again, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. They'll be one of the teams to beat here in District 2 3A play. Then you've got Roosevelt. The Roosevelt Eagles, again, a team that Abernathy is somewhat familiar with. They've played several times in district play and in non-district play in recent memory. And let's just face it, unfortunately for the Eagles, they've been kind of a struggling football program that's had a hard time, if you will, getting on track. No offense to the Eagles, but they've just had a hard time putting out a product on the field that produces wins for the Roosevelt Eagles. This year's been no different. They are coming off their first win of the season. They did beat Floydada last time out, but the Roosevelt Eagles come in 1-4 in district play, and they're actually being outscored by 100 points overall on the season. 180-80 overall, the Eagles being outscored in district play. Although I will say, Roosevelt, one of those teams in district, they give you a little bit different look offensively. They're going to spread it out. They're going to throw it around a little bit. Don't see that a whole lot in this district. So maybe that style enables them to kind of string together 4 quarters at some point and come up with a district win. Don't see it being much more than that, though, for the Eagles in 2019. And then finally, you have the Stanton Buffaloes. The Buffaloes coming in to district play. They are 1-4 on the season, but kind of a different looking 1-4 than you have Roosevelt. Roosevelt has been a not very impressive 1-4 start for the Eagles. For Stanton, I mean, it's hard to say you've looked impressive in a 1-4 record, so that may be taking it a little bit far. But a little bit different feel to Stanton's 1-4 record. The Stanton Buffaloes seem to be quite a bit improved heading into district play compared to what we saw out of a just inept Stanton ball club, honestly, last year. They seem to be quite a bit better. The Stanton Buffaloes, they obviously a tough one, opening up district play next Friday night right here in Abernathy, facing off against the Antelopes. Stanton's defense has been fairly solid, but they've had to carry the load for the Buffaloes. Is the problem for Stanton has been their inability to score, averaging under 10 points per game. So they've lost some low-scoring affairs, and they haven't given up a ton of points. They've just had a hard time outscoring their opponent. So that's going to be the challenge, if you will, for the Stanton Buffaloes. So that's a quick kind of just tell of the tape. We didn't go super in-depth on any of these teams simply because we're going to be dissecting these opponents as the Antelopes face them each week in the Abernathy Antelope pregame show. But you've got the Coahoma Bulldogs, the Colorado City Wolves, Idalou Wildcats, Roosevelt Eagles, Stanton Buffaloes, in addition to the Abernathy Antelopes. So with that being said, the fun part of our show today, let's break it down. How do I, not that I'm an expert of any sort, but how do I see District 2 3A shaking out? I'm going to go ahead and give you the predictions from top to bottom. Obviously, the top 4 teams in district will earn a postseason berth. That's what all 6 of these teams are striving for heading into the season and into district play. Can they get one of those 4 playoff spots in addition to obviously battling it out for a district title? Yes, I'm a little bit of a homer, but I don't think there's any question the favorite heading into district play has to be the 7th-ranked Antelopes. The Abernathy Antelopes, they're 4-1. They had that kind of 14-13 loss with an asterisk next to it against a really good post ball club a couple of weeks ago on homecoming, a game that was shortened in the 3rd quarter. Because of weather, but the Antelopes have been really, really good. I think they're the hands-down favorite. They're the team to beat. They're the team with a target on their back coming into the 2019 district season. So heading it off at number 1, how I think the district's going to shake out, I've got the Abernathy Antelopes as district champions for the 2nd consecutive year out of this District 2 3A. Next, I've got the Idalou Wildcats. I've got Idalou coming in the number 2 spot. And what's interesting about that, we'll talk about that here in a minute, but the final game of the regular season, the Abernathy Antelopes make the trip to the Idalou Wildcats. That could very well determine the district champion. Obviously, lots of football between now and then, but that could be a really fun trip to Idalou come November in the final regular season game of the season. I had a hard time deciphering 2 and 3 because I've been really impressed with what we've seen out of the Coahoma Bulldogs so far. We talked about them 4-1 on the season. I think the Bulldogs earn a playoff spot. I think they chip in at number 3 in the district standings. Again, they play Idalou coming up on Friday night, the opener in district play. So that could be a telltale game between those 2 teams, how that one shakes out. But I've got Abernathy 1, Idalou 2. I've got Coahoma checking in at number 3. And then I had a really hard time figuring out who is going to be that 4th and final playoff team. I actually had it one way and I flipped it. I think the Colorado City Wolves are going to do just enough to get into the postseason. Again, they are way down this season, just 1-4 on the season. But Colorado City, they've played a very difficult schedule. They're going to be battle-tested. I think they've got enough firepower to maybe beat Stanton and Roosevelt. If they do that, they're going to make the postseason, in my opinion. So I have them edging out the Stanton Buffaloes for that 4th and final playoff spot. I've got Stanton coming in at number 5. The only win I see them getting probably in district play, maybe against the Roosevelt Eagles. Again, if they can kind of figure out a way to beat Colorado City, maybe Stanton slides into that 4th and final playoff spot. We shall see, but I've got the Stanton Buffaloes checking in at number 5, and then I think it's just going to be a struggle this year again for the Roosevelt Eagles. Roosevelt going to have a hard time winning in district play. We'll see if they can pull an upset at some point along the way, but I've got Roosevelt rounding out my district predictions at number 6. So this is how I have them. Number 1, the Abernathy Antelopes. Number 2, the Idalou Wildcats. Number 3, the Coahoma Bulldogs. Number 4, the Colorado City Wolves. Coming in 5th, right behind Colorado City, I've got Stanton, the Buffaloes, and then a Roosevelt rounding out the district standings as far as how I see it stacking up heading into district play. I already mentioned it a moment ago. I think the game to watch in district play, I think it's going to be Abernathy and Idalou. The final regular season game of the year. The Antelopes travel to Idalou. It's always a tough place to play there at Riddell Field. Abernathy, it's been a while since they've made the trip to Idalou, so that'll be a fun trip. Could be a lot on the line as Abernathy and Idalou hook up in the final game of district play. And then as far as an offensive district MVP, again, it's going to sound like I'm a homer when I kind of go down this list, but I think Abernathy's the team to beat. They've got the players to watch as well. I don't think you're going to have an offensive MVP. I would be shocked if it's anyone other than quarterback Bryson Daly. I just think that's how it's going to shake out as long as he can stay healthy. In 2019, I think Bryson Daly is the player to watch in this district. He's a really good defensive ball player as well, but I think he's going to be the offensive MVP coming out of this district. Again, if he can stay healthy, Bryson Daly, the guy that's getting a lot of looks from some D1 schools and some other schools. It's going to be fun following his recruiting process as well. For the Abernathy Antelopes, we're going to miss him a lot next year, the 4-year starting quarterback for the Abernathy Antelopes. I think on the defensive side of the ball, there's a few different ways you could go with this. A little bit of a roll of the dice, if you will, here. But I think district MVP for the Abernathy Antelopes is going to be Dante Flores. Flores has been impressive. He's leading the team in tackles. He's almost at 11 tackles per contest. That's impressive. He's doing it consistently. He's all over the field. So Dante Flores, I think, could check in as your district MVP. You've also got some valuable guys in there on defense, some guys like Miles Keith, Matthew DeYonda that could challenge for that as well. And some of these other programs as well, if they have just stellar seasons, could provide a defensive MVP for the district. But at least as far as I go, maybe a little bit of a homer pick staying with the Abernathy Antelopes, but I do think it's Dante Flores who ends up being your district MVP for the Antelopes. So it should be a fun run through District 2-3A Division II play. Obviously, the Antelopes have their sights set on a district title. We're hoping that comes to pass. Obviously, their sights set a lot more than that as well, getting into the postseason and hopefully making another run. Would love to end this season in Jerry's world with an opportunity to play for a state championship. But man, a lot has to happen to get to that point. You need a lot of skill and really a lot of luck if you get to that point in the season. Abernathy, a long ways to go before we could ever talk about that. But the Abernathy Antelopes getting ready to start District 2-3A play next Friday night against the Stanton Buffaloes. We'll preview that game for you on next week's edition of the Abernathy Antelope pregame show. But today we wanted to just kind of shake down this district, take a look at District 2-3A play and how we kind of see that playing out. So I hope you enjoyed a little bit of a different looking Abernathy Antelope pregame show here this week. Enjoy your off Friday night. It's going to be weird not having Antelope football coming up Friday night, but the Antelopes resting up in preparations for district play. So we'll be right back with you. We'll post our preview of the Stanton Buffaloes and the Abernathy Antelopes next Thursday night ahead of the Friday night district opener here in Abernathy at Abernathy Antelope Field. Until then, this is Ty Horsford, voice of the Abernathy Antelopes, saying good afternoon and go Lopes.